Somebody call Rick, yo.
Yeah, DA, finally. Let's go. Here she comes. Classic one,
I know you lying.
Yes, yo.
Oh, your turn, baby.
What you want, spell?
I'm crazy now.
All the way! All the way!
No automation, ILA. No automation.
ILA! Let's go, wake up, wake up. ILA! ILA! Yo, come on, y'all. This is the fight they want.
Walk away till they come back on.
Come on, free healthcare, come on.
If y'all ain't going, y'all get the job in truck circles, I'm not walking.
Somebody getting up.
That was a quick walk, Dave.
ILA! ILA! ILA!
No. Call that call, bro.
More money, ILA. More money, ILA.
What's going on?
Hey, yo.
No automation.
No automation, ILA. No automation.
ILA!
All the way.
ILA!
All the way.
Fill that gap, buddy. Go down the line. Go down the line. Boot tapping out. Fight for boot. Boot tapping out.
Volunteers, yo.
show.
No automation. ILA. 1291.
Who? Shit.
Okay. ILA. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. ILA. ILA. All the way. ILA. All the way. ILA! All the way! ILA! All the way! ILA! All the way! This is the first they want! This is the first they want! This is the first they want! ILA! All the way! ILA! All the way! No automation! No semi-automation!
Newark, New Jersey?
They gonna be in first thing, 16 years old. Still going at the PSC. Hold on, she got the lights out. She outside. They gonna be dressed like you. You ain't won't know who it is.
ILA! ILA!
All the way.
ILA!
All the way.
If it's a fight they want, if it's a fight they want, slow it down.
A robot can't do what a human does.
Slow it down.
Tell a robot to do that.
ILA! ILA! ILA!
Hey, Lynn. Come here, Lynn. I gotta talk to you. Come here.
Oh, boy.
Shit, open your mouth.
Talking to you. You said you could drive around the circle. You ain't walking the circle.
My phone is on this.
ILA! ILA! ILA!
It's a big gap. They want you back.
ILA!
All the way.
Did any of y'all bring your speakers?
Man, magnificent morning. Ice waiting for you at the gate.
No automation. 1291. Porta potties out here. I gotta go to the bathroom.
ILA!
All the way.
ILA!
All the way.
ILA!
All the way.
When I say ILA, you say power. ILA!
Power.
ILA!
Power.
ILA!
Power.
There is something, but I saw it.
No. I need to sit down for a second. In my walking home.
ILA!
Power!
come over and visit one day. You know what I mean? You know where I live at. Maybe one day. You ain't working.
Huh? Yeah, I just got off. I did it.
Come on, ladies, tighten it up, tighten it up. Let's go, let's go, let's go, y'all. Tighten it up, ladies. Girl.
Profit over people. I like that stuff.
All the way. Everywhere. All the way.
No automation.
Automation.
No automation.
No automation.
No automation.
No automation. Everybody out here staying out here. Yep.
That's adorable. A long ride.
We locked in all day, all night.
What's up, baby?
No automation, ILA. No automation, ILA. More money, ILA. More money, ILA. No automation, ILA. Ooh. Ooh. No automation, ILA.
You're responsible for that. That's your fault. That's your fault. You taking that shit? Take what? Come on, bro.
No automation. 1291. No automation.
Bobby got a 3 week.
Ain't nobody picked, right? Got you. Why not? Why not? Why not, baby? Where you at?
Lower down, lower down, lower down, lower down.
Not too aggressive.
That's that booger sugar. Yeah, there you go. Talk about with the food. Hop in the line. Hop in the line with the folks. You're going the wrong way. I understand. Finish it, right? Your brother right there. You need help.
There you go. Got me now. Got me now. You gotta give him gas pedal.
They got me the other day. They sit my urine off the other side.
Everybody want to get me, they get me.
ILA! ILA! Power! Here we go. We got 5, 6 more recruits.
The cavalry can't hear me, Dusty, yo. The cavalry is here.
Wide the line a little bit. Wide up, wide up. Wide the line. Just a little bit. Filling up the back.
Not from the get to me. Come here.
Hold down the line. Go in the gas. Specifically gas training. Fill this in. Fill this in. Be quick. Ain't walking. Wide the line.
You do it for the jokers.
I don't.
All right,
You hanging in there. You hanging in there. Tighten up, tighten up, tighten up, tighten up. Where you gonna
JB first ride to the face.
Bobby again. Get him right. Come on. Right, we need something, right? We need something. Go ahead and take over. Come on, right. ILA.
All the way.
ILA.
All the way.
ILA.
All the way.
If it's a fight they want. If it's a fight they want. Now my man Gilbert out here on one fucking foot. ILA! ILA! All the way!
Oh yeah, I remember that.
ILA! All the way!
District council told them no.
I'm on camera. I'm on camera now. Hey, Mom.
Hey, Mom.
Oh, yeah, get him make this lava, yo.
I don't think I can do it at that pace is what I'm saying.
What you just did.
Oh, yeah.
How dare you?
I got you. Yeah, I got you.
What? You ain't doing that. Yo.
Hitting your helmet, hitting your head. That's why I feel so
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
Don't mind.
Yo, who loaded him?
Pay attention to the vehicle.
Shove it then.
Get back in here, Aaron.
What time you got, Chris?
You know, they get a fair wage and they get job security because that's what they want. Southgate, we got people in Southgate.
One shopping set. I don't want to advertise.
$5 billion in debt.
ILA! All the way! ILA! All the way! ILA! All the way! If it's a fight they want! If it's a fight they want! If it's a fight they want! ILA!
All the way.
Somebody just escaped the line. We need somebody to replace. We need one volunteer.
I thought we were saying power. ILA power.
Oh, you switch it up. Right? You get some height.
And all of a sudden, Joe, you have a good time. Blood pressure.
La la.
ILA! All the way.
Should be able to find live things in there.
ILA. Somebody else hit some Alcatraz. Robbie Viola. How you doing, bro? Top of the morning. Like Rodriguez said. They got a flag knob over there. Nobody's flying though. You're doing a good job, Chris. All right, listen up, listen up. Volunteers on the line. Volunteers. We got two young gentlemen. We're consistent on the line.
Conrad, I need you out here, Conrad.
One volunteer. Thank you, Robbie. Thank you, Robbie. One more volunteer. One more volunteer. Thank you, sir. Young boys, y'all can come take a little break.
That's it right there, that's it right there.
Hey, all right, let me do my thing, baby.
You do what you do,
Y'all take a little break.
Hold it up, baby.
All right, let's fill these gaps. Fill these gaps. Let's make a circle, not a hole. Make a circle, not a hole. Nice and full. Yeah. you out here for 3 more hours.
Yo.
Y'all, y'all got it. Not you, not you.
I know.
Nice move, though. Nice move. Doing a good job. ILA! ILA!
All the way.
ILA!
All the way.
Like that hat.
Hey, what's up, boy? Ernie, baby.
Mr. Johnson, good job, Mr. Johnson. ILA!
All the way.
ILA!
All the way.
ILA!
All the way.
If it's a fight they won!
What are they gonna get?
If it's a fight they won!
What are they get?
ILA!
All the way.
Good job, Chris. Go down, man. Go down. Nice move.
It don't work. It don't work.
Hey, yo, Pop, you heard me? It don't work.
I don't need that. Thank you, Chris. ILA!
Two trips.
Y'all running out of gas. ILA!
All the way.
ILA!
All the way.
Alright, listen, we gotta fill in these gaps. Serious, man. We gotta fill in these gaps. Fill in the gaps.
It's a 6-year contract, so you want a 60-hour raise?
Gotta fight by hand. Serve everything you need.
He bought that whole side from him.
Yo, my feet getting tired. You got me? What do y'all got me?
ILA! ILA!
All the way.
Y'all in. Slow down a little bit more. Fill in that gap. We're tired.
Yeah, because I was talking to him. I was like, yeah, I was like,
What you got?
Y'all don't want to be down here. Come on, let's get these chips in.
If they get tight, yo, this is 4 days. We just go a couple more days.
I'm staying on the side.
okay?
I get fucking dizzy.
Gas
first grade.
Tell that good. How you doing? Hey.
Dave, go! Better get that sneaker over right next time you left round. Sneaker over right. Why? Which one is up? What's up? Say something. What's up, man? You got Jay's guy. Steve, go grab that microphone. One song, take song. I got natural ADHD. I'll be here for 36 hours
Third, we got the most.
But I'm going right down the street, you know what? One song, take some.
I got it.
Pay attention.
ILA!
All the way!
ILA!
All the way!
ILA!
All the way!
One from take some.
One song, take some.
Pass it along.
We might need some more bodies.
Definitely need more bodies, right?
No,
It's like,
right.
it's like a half full. It's a half full. It's not a circle right now. It's a half full.
One song, take some. That.
What's up?
Take some. I'll get going. Let's go. I will.
What's up?
Take some.
ILA!
All the way.
ILA!
All the way.
We got a half full right now. A whole circle. Wax on, wax off.
He said it would have been better if I would have.
Getting ready for tomorrow.
I got a good composure out there. I like that.
Tomorrow with the heat.
ILA!
All the way.
ILA!
All the way.
ILA!
All the way.
What's up, I? Good to see you.
Charlie. You gonna get in there, baby? Please, I appreciate it. Let me hold that. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Come on, come on. Easy pace. Easy pace. Still need gas. You've been summoned.
Hey, Manny, I need you, Manny. Come on, Tim. Take a walk with me, Manny. Come on, Tim. Come on, Manny. Come take a walk with me, Manny. All the way. All the way. Take some, one some. All the way.
I knew it was something to that, bro.
Hey, man.
I thought you was my man.
Like how that sound up there, they blowing it up. I thought he was like catching a Super Bowl winning touchdown. One song, take
He
some.
never let me put that down.
August.
How's it going, brother? I had to step away from that J&H real quick. But I'm coming out.
Been telling them, my pops been telling them too. Pull your pants up. Nice pace.
Give me one. No, give me my drum with the
Hey, look at that gap. Look at that gap right there. Yo, fill that gap.
And you say no? Then
Stuck in there. I ain't even see you join it. ILA! Hey, look at all this room I got over here. What's going on, y'all? What's going on, y'all? We need a significant circle. We ain't filling that nothing. There's not no circle right now.
that means all these people standing on the sidelines get the
That makes
fuck
sense,
in.
don't it?
Let's go!
Let's put it on this. ILA!
All the way!
ILA!
All the way!
ILA!
All the way!
If it's a fight they want! If it's a fight they want! ILA!
All the way!
Channel 17 is here. What y'all gonna do? What y'all gonna do now? Y'all gonna walk now? Cause
Get it right.
ILA!
All the way!
ILA!
All the way!
I guess I gotta walk. Gotta fill these gaps. I'm gonna walk a little bit. Fill these gaps. Widen the circle. Consistent pace. Slow down. We ain't gotta run. ILA!
All the way!
ILA!
All the way!
Stay loud so they can hear you at home. Why they crying? Wiping their tears. ILA!
All the way!
ILA!
All the way!
ILA!
All the way!
If it's a fight they want!
It's all they get!
If it's a fight they want!
It's all they get!
It's a better circle. I wish more people would be in this circle right now.
It's coming.
I wish we had some more volunteers for this circle right now. Would be nice. Would be nice for more rank and file to join this circle right now. ILA!
All the way!
ILA!
All the way!
No automation!
No elevation!
No heavy automation!
No stepping elevation!
If it's a fight they want!
It's the war they get!
If it's a fight they want!
It's the war they get!
ILA! Everything good.
Chilling.
I see you, OG. Oh, Fran, I thought you was joining in, Fran. We're waiting for all the Gallagers to join the circle. All the Gallagers to join the circle, please. About 18 of y'all. Y'all here for it.
Hey, yo, She!
He ain't here for the photo op.
Man, let me holler at you real quick.
ILA!
All the way!
ILA!
All the way!
ILA! They got hands in Jersey. ILA! If it's a fight they want! If it's a fight they want!
A little better, y'all. Good job. Good job.
We lonely.
They trying to figure it out. I don't know too many people that can get raped.
ILA!
All the way! Cause that's how they feel.
Look at the Gallagher.
Yo, what's up?
Where you going, huh? Going down slow right now.
ILA!
All the way!
ILA!
All the way!
ILA!
You tell your mom love me. I ain't gonna get it.
If it's a fight they want!
Lord, they get.
If it's a fight they want!
CJ can't lie. Get your steps in, Lisa. Lisa, get off the phone. All the way!
We got two more people in. Hey, fill these gaps. Fill these gaps.
You couldn't imagine.
Randy said fill the gaps, man.
We'll see. I'm prepared for
ILA!
all the way!
ILA!
All the way!
ILA!
All the way! That's channel 17.
I stopped. I had my turn. I did it in South Carolina. I did it here.
One of my daughters is still in Jersey. That was one down Charlotte. Yo, I heard that's the new, you could be in Atlanta.
Don't work without a fair contract. ILA!
All the way!
ILA!
All the way!
ILA!
All the way!
If it's a fight they want!
All the way!
All right.
No work without a fair contract. I ain't had no children.
Everywhere we go, people want to know.
Right. I'm sure. It's a lot of things. It's a lot of things. It's a lot of like they go back. It's not. And I told you.
From missing teeth to granddaughter's treats. Made possible by Doctors of Joy. This World Dentist Day. Sensodyne celebrates dentists.
पास्ता पास्ता में तो मैदा होता है but that yummy pasta
आ गया है ओलिव किचन मल्टीग्रेन पास्ता। इसमें है 4 हेल्दी ग्रेन।
इसमें है 0 मैदा और ढेर सारा प्रोटीन एंड फाइबर। ओलिव किचन मल्टीग्रेन पास्ता with no maida and same great taste.
Today, I want to tell you 3 stories from my life. That's it. No big deal. Just 3 stories. The first story is about connecting the dots. I dropped out of Reed College after the first 6 months, but then stayed around as a drop-in for another 18 months or so before I really quit. So why'd I drop out? It started before I was born. My biological mother was a young, unwed graduate student, and she decided to put me up for adoption. She felt very strongly that I should be adopted by college graduates, so everything was all set for me to be adopted at birth by a lawyer and his wife. Except that when I popped out, they decided at the last minute that they really wanted a girl. So my parents, who were on a waiting list, got a call in the middle of the night asking, "We've got an unexpected baby boy. Do you want him?" They said, "Of course." My biological mother found out later that my mother had never graduated from college and that my father had never graduated from high school. She refused to sign the final adoption papers. She only relented a few months later when my parents promised that I would go to college. This was the start in my life. And 17 years later, I did go to college. But I naively chose a college that was almost as expensive as Stanford. And all of my working class parents' savings were being spent on my college tuition. After 6 months, I couldn't see the value in it. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, and no idea how college was going to help me figure it out. And here I was, spending all the money my parents had saved their entire life. So I decided to drop out and trust that it would all work out okay. It was pretty scary at the time, but looking back, it was one of the best decisions I ever made. The minute I dropped out, I could stop taking the required classes that didn't interest me and begin dropping in on the ones that looked far more interesting. It wasn't all romantic. I didn't have a dorm room, so I slept on the floor in friends' rooms. I returned Coke bottles for the 5-cent deposits to buy food with. And I would walk the 7 miles across town every Sunday night to get one good meal a week at the Hare Krishna temple. I loved it. And much of what I stumbled into by following my curiosity and intuition turned out to be priceless later on. Let me give you one example. Reed College at that time offered perhaps the best calligraphy instruction in the country. Throughout the campus, every poster, every label on every drawer was beautifully hand calligraphed. Because I had dropped out and didn't have to take the normal classes, I decided to take a calligraphy class to learn how to do this. I learned about serif and sans serif typefaces, about varying the amount of space between different letter combinations, about what makes great typography great. It was beautiful, historical, artistically subtle in a way that science can't capture, and I found it fascinating. None of this had even a hope of any practical application in my life. But 10 years later, when we were designing the first Macintosh computer, it all came back to me. And we designed it all into the Mac. It was the first computer with beautiful typography. If I had never dropped in on that single course in college, the Mac would have never had multiple typefaces or proportionally spaced fonts. And since Windows just copied the Mac, it's likely that no personal computer would have them. If I had never dropped out, I would have never dropped in on that calligraphy class, and personal computers might not have the wonderful typography that they do. Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path, and that will make all the difference. My second story is about love and loss. I was lucky. I found what I loved to do early in life. Woz and I started Apple in my parents' garage when I was 20. We worked hard, and in 10 years, Apple had grown from just the two of us in a garage into a $2 billion company with over 4,000 employees. We just released our finest creation, the Macintosh, a year earlier, and I just turned 30. And then I got fired. How can you get fired from a company you started?
मन नहीं भरा यार, किसी और को धूल चटानी है। किले तक राइड करेगा? चल।
रुक मत, चल तू, रुक मत। रुक मत।
सिर्फ कैस्ट्रॉल एक्टिव का बेहतरीन 3x प्रोटेक्शन रखे आपके इंजन को हमेशा फिट। कैस्ट्रॉल एक्टिव विद 3x प्रोटेक्शन।
अगोड़ा पे पाइए बेस्ट होटल्स इन कमाल के प्राइसेस।
डोमेस्टिक एंड इंटरनेशनल दोनों।
Started. Well, as Apple grew, we hired someone who I thought was very talented to run the company with me. And for the first year or so, things went well. But then our visions of the future began to diverge, and eventually we had a falling out. When we did, our board of directors sided with him. And so at 30, I was out. and very publicly out. What had been the focus of my entire adult life was gone, and it was devastating. I really didn't know what to do for a few months. I felt that I had let the previous generation of entrepreneurs down, that I had dropped the baton as it was being passed to me. I met with David Packard and Bob Noyce and tried to apologize for screwing up so badly. I was a very public failure, and I even thought about running away from the valley. But something slowly began to dawn on me. I still loved what I did. The turn of events at Apple had not changed that one bit. I'd been rejected, but I was still in love. And so I decided to start over. I didn't see it then, but it turned out that getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again, less sure about everything. It freed me to enter one of the most creative periods of my life. During the next 5 years, I started a company named Next, another company named Pixar, and fell in love with an amazing woman who would become my wife. Pixar went on to create the world's first computer-animated feature film, Toy Story, and is now the most successful animation studio in the world. In a remarkable turn of events, Apple bought Next, and I returned to Apple, and the technology we developed at Next is at the heart of Apple's current renaissance. And Lorene and I have a wonderful family together. I'm pretty sure none of this would have happened if I hadn't been fired from Apple. It was awful tasting medicine, but I guess the patient needed it. Sometimes life's going to hit you in the head with a brick. Don't lose faith. I'm convinced that the only thing that kept me going was that I loved what I did. You've got to find what you love, and that is as true for work as it is for your lovers. Your work is going to fill a large part of your life, and the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking, and don't settle. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know when you find it. And like any great relationship, it just gets better and better as the years roll on. So keep looking, don't settle. My third story is about death. When I was 17, I read a quote that went something like, "If you live each day as if it was your last, someday you'll most certainly be right." It made an impression on me, and since then, for the past 33 years, I've looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do today? And whenever the answer has been no for too many days in a row, I know I need to change something. Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life. Because almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, these things just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important. Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. You are already naked. There is no reason not to follow your heart. No one wants to die. Even people who want to go to heaven don't want to die to get there. And yet, death is the destination we all share. No one has ever escaped it. And that is as it should be, because death is very likely the single best invention of life. It's life's change agent. It clears out the old to make way for the new. Right now, the new is you. But someday, not too long from now, you will gradually become the old and be cleared away. Sorry to be so dramatic, but it's quite true. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. Stay hungry, stay foolish.
अरे तुमने सुना?
क्या?
विद्या मंदिर क्लासेस का VIQ इज बैक। जानिए अपने बच्चे का सब्जेक्ट वाइज परफॉर्मेंस एनालिसिस। ये टेस्ट 5th से 11th स्टैंडर्ड्स के बच्चों के लिए है और डेट्स हैं 6th, 13th, 19th एंड 20th अक्टूबर। साथ ही 2.5 करोड़ तक के कैश रिवॉर्ड्स भी।
अरे वाह!
थिंक IIT, थिंक विद्या मंदिर।
Hey guys, welcome to this session by IntelliPat. In this session, we are going to completely learn about JavaScript. So JavaScript is a language which can be used to create dynamic web pages and also can be used for backend programming. So when it comes to web development, JavaScript is the complete package. So now, before moving on to this session, please subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss our upcoming videos, and also leave a like if you enjoy our content. Before moving on to this session, let's take a quick glance at the agenda. We'll start off with what is JavaScript and why do we need it. Once that is done, we'll understand what can we build using JavaScript. After that, we'll understand the basic concepts in JavaScript and also the ES6 features of JavaScript. Once that is done, we'll move on to document object model and JavaScript events. After that, we'll move on to asynchronous JavaScript and we'll learn more about it. Once all that is done, we'll basically learn about a popular JavaScript framework called Node.js. So now once all the concepts are done, we'll start the practical where we'll be doing a hands-on where we create a sample application using JavaScript. So that's it for the agenda. Now without any further ado, let's begin with this session.
Now let us take a look at what is JavaScript. It is important to understand what JavaScript is and how it can benefit us, mainly because JavaScript's meaning has evolved from time to time. Before the current versions of JavaScript rolled out, JavaScript was only used for web browsers, but now it can be used in different ways. So let us take a look at what it actually means. JavaScript is a high-level, object-oriented scripting language. It was created by Bernard Eich in Netscape in 1995. So JavaScript was originally created in 1995. Now, high-level object-oriented and scripting language are sometimes considered to be a bit more jargonistic than they need to be. Let us discuss them one by one. First thing is high-level. So a high-level programming language is basically a programming language that does not deal with the low-level memory management stuff that other programs might have to deal with. This is because JavaScript has a runtime environment, and what it does is that it takes a look at the code that you have written, takes a look at the memory that it will need, allocates that memory and continuously at regular intervals of time keeps checking if there is some memory that can be freed up. And if it can be, then it frees up that memory, and all of the variables that were assigned in that memory are going to be completely wiped off. So it will allocate and deallocate memory on its own. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have just no control over how things are happening behind the scenes and how you that you don't need to care about memory management at all. But at smaller level to medium level applications, you don't really have to worry about how applications are being built and how they are going to be used. At a large scale application such as a large scale JavaScript application such as Gmail or Google Drive, you have to worry about how memory is being used and you have to be very efficient about it. There are certain things that you can do in order to affect how the memory management is going to take place and if it's effective or not. So you can talk about this and discuss about this at length, but that's basically what high level means, that at the beginning you don't need to worry about how to allocate and deallocate memory. Whereas in programming languages like C++, you would have to do the memory management stuff on your own. You would have to allocate a chunk of memory to your program. When that program or that piece of program that executes is done, you need to then deallocate that memory. If you do not, then that memory is going to be reserved and is not going to be used by your program or by any other program because the compiler has not freed up the memory. So just keep that in mind. It's also object-oriented. Object orientation is basically a paradigm of programming in which you write code so that your code can reflect real-world objects and scenarios such as people, person, events, things like that. This is really important because in enterprise-level applications, when you're building applications for companies, the common language that you use are going to be to describe these things. In programming, however, these things are not really something that people consider. So you can create your own objects, you can create your own nomenclatures and translate them into code. This is what object-oriented programming allows us to do. And it's a scripting language because it was developed in order to write and to be written and be executed by the browser. Scripting languages are executed by some other programs, not by the operating system itself. So if you are trying to write JavaScript in the browser, then it's a script, not a program. However, it's very important to understand that JavaScript has now evolved and now it can be used to build other kinds of applications as well. So when it started out, JavaScript was a very simple scripting language that was developed in order to, for the sole purpose of manipulating web pages, adding content, removing content, animating things into the frame, animating things out of the frame, changing the styles and whatever. Nowadays, because JavaScript is so popular and so easy to pick up, many of the programming languages are, many of the paradigms and platforms support JavaScript. You can build JavaScript. You can use JavaScript to build mobile applications, servers, program web servers. Web applications are already being developed using JavaScript, and there are many other kinds of things as well, such as native Windows applications and all. So you can use JavaScript to build different kinds of applications. It has been supported on multiple platforms and will continue to expand its support. So with that, we have a clear picture of what JavaScript is. Now let us take a look at how you can use JavaScript. In this presentation, we'll be taking a look at how you can use JavaScript in a web browser. There are multiple ways of doing so. However, JavaScript, as we have discussed, can be used to build different kinds of applications, and we won't be discussing it here. With that out of the way, let's take a look at how you can use JavaScript. So there are three ways to use JavaScript, especially in the browser. So in the browser, you are supposed to write the JavaScript code in the HTML file or some other file and embed it. But how do you do that? Let's get started and see how you can do that. The first thing you have to understand is that the reason why there are so many ways of writing JavaScript depends on what kind of code are you writing. And in the hands-on for this topic, we'll discuss what that actually means. So the first thing is that it can be inline. Basically suggests that the code that you're writing is completely embedded in the HTML. So if you have a button, it is right next to the button and it's only regarding that button that the code is going to run. So that's one way of doing it. The reason why inline code was invented was that if you had some small bit of code that only needs to run on a particular time or at a particular time, or when it is associated to a particular HTML element, then you can just write it there. Instead of polluting your HTML with different kinds of things, you can just write it there. Then there's script tag. So a script tag basically means that there, just as in HTML, there's a style tag in which you can write CSS. Script tags allow you to write JavaScript code. When the browser sees the script tag, it will take anything written inside the script tag, which is the opening and closing tag, and consider it to be, depending on the version of your browser and what kind of support it provides. So in scenarios like this, we would have to write some kind of a text that describes what kind of script we are writing inside the tags, such as text/JavaScript or whatever. Nowadays, it is considered that by default, you're going to be writing JavaScript in the script tag. So you don't have to worry about that at all. Then comes script files. Similarly to script tag, you can write your script inside a file, give it the .js extension, which is the JavaScript file, and you can embed it inside your browser. So you are going to say, okay, after you're done loading the HTML page, load this file as well. This file contains some HTML code, and this file contains some JavaScript code that needs to be embedded in the HTML file. Now, the reasons for the different kinds of script files is something we'll see in the hands-on, but basically it depends on how much of the entire HTML page is going to be affected by the JavaScript. So let's take a look at the hands-on and understand how that works. How you can write the JavaScript code. We'll be printing something on the console. I'll explain what a console is, but first let's see our setup. I have a file, I've called it index.html, and I have opened it in a code editor. I'm using Visual Studio Code. You can use any code editor or text editor that you wish to use. Open that file inside a web browser. my file is located in the E drive and it's called index.html. But you can call it anything that you want to. It's just a convention. Now let's take a look at the different ways that we have discussed using which we can create our JavaScript code and embed it inside our HTML. The first thing we have to do is we have to write some HTML code. Now in Visual Studio Code, I have a snippet that will automatically write most of the HTML that we need in order to get started. So just press this bang symbol and press tab. This will only work in Visual Studio Code. If you're using any other programming environment, this may or may not be available there. So just make sure that you know that it is there. I'll call the title to be JS tutorial. I will save it. And now if I go back to the browser and if I refresh, if you take a look at the title right now, it's index.html. Refresh it. Now it's called JS tutorial. So in case you're not familiar with HTML that much, I would recommend that you first understand HTML because JavaScript builds on top of HTML. So if you don't know HTML, then this is not going to work. Now let's take a look at the different ways through which we can use the JavaScript code. So there are different ways. Firstly, that's the inline code. So how do you write code that executes inline? Well, let's say there's a button. I call it log button. And what I want is when this button is clicked, I want to print something on the console. Now, what is the console? Different programming languages such as JavaScript and C++ have a console. Now, a console is basically just a terminal or a command window which will show the output of the code that you're writing. You can also put the output inside a file or inside some server, but basically this is where the output can be seen. Now, in a web browser, it's a little difficult. So what every web browser has is a JavaScript console. Right click on the web browser and click on the inspect button or press Ctrl-Shift-I. Nowadays, every web browser has this. When this opens, you can see that it has a console button here. I go up to that and I can execute my JavaScript here as well. To print something on the console, you can just execute some JavaScript code here as well. I can write console.log and I'm using Google Chrome, but you can use any web browser such as Firefox or the Edge browser using Microsoft and it will work just fine. And you can write hello world. Semicolons are not required, but it is a good practice to write them. You press enter and this is what it prints. Hello world. Forget about this undefined right now, that doesn't really matter. Now what I want is I want this to be a little more interactive. To do that, I want to have a button which has the keyword log inside it. So if I refresh this, you can see there's a button, but nothing happens when I click on it. So that's a problem. Now I want to execute the same code that I have written in the console, but I want it to happen when I click on the button. So don't worry about the syntax right now. I'll explain what that means in a moment. Just write this JavaScript, hello world, and I can put the semicolon here as well. I go back. If I click, nothing will happen. This is because our browser has the old version of our index.html. We have to refresh it so that we can fetch the new version. To take a look at the current code, right click on the page and press view page source. As you can see that the button now has console.log because it has refreshed. If I refresh this, now everything will work. If I press log now, it prints hello world onto the code. Now, as I've already discussed, the reason why there are multiple ways of doing this is because I only want to run this code when a person clicks the button. Suppose that there are multiple buttons on my page. It's a huge page. There's like thousands of lines of code. And somewhere down the line, or like 1157 line, I write button and I want the same code here. One thing I can do is copy and paste it here, such as this. But this violates an important principle in programming, which suggests that you should never copy and paste the code. So console.log, console.log. It does work, but there's a problem here that you may or may not see. Suppose that this is like, again, as I've said, it's on 1000 line. Multiple people are working on this because this is such a huge file. Somebody comes along and says, okay, the message that we want to print is hello world, but we want an exclamation mark here as well. I put the exclamation mark, I save it, go back to my HTML page, refresh it so that I can see, press on the log button, and okay, it's showing the exclamation mark. So our code works, But the problem is now that the part where we copied the code, it's showing the old version because we didn't update it there. So now we have to go down again and press this, and this is only for two buttons. Suppose there are millions of buttons on a page. Suppose there are buttons and forms and we want to perform these tasks, multiple tasks, and synchronize them together. This could be really difficult. Right now it's working, but it's going to be really difficult. There are other ways of doing this, of course, and we will take a look at those one by one. But to overcome these issues, after the, let me just close this up. Yeah, so I'll just put an h1 tag, look inside console. Now let me just show you what a script tag looks like. So after this, I can write script tag, and here I can write my JavaScript code and it will work just fine. This time it won't work when I'm pressing a button. That was just for the inline version. Here I can just write some code that will be automatically used. So as you can see, as soon as my browser starts looking at the code, it takes a look at the code, creates the h1 tag, displays it on the screen. Then takes a look at the script tag. What it does is that it prints everything that needs to be printed on the screen and then closes the script tag. So everything after this needs to be interpreted as HTML, and that happens. So this is why when we look at this, this gets printed and then this gets printed in the console. So that's one way of doing this. Another thing to understand is that this isn't the only way that you can do this, but this is a good way to get started. Another way to do this is going to be if you can create a script file. So now script files are basically just files that you can use in order to write your code inside them. So you don't want to mismatch your HTML and JavaScript code. What you can do is you can just use script.js. Now to show you how that works, all I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a script.js file that I have already written. I'll write console.log. I'll print hello world. It's the same code that I have written thus far, but it works. Now I write it here, copy, paste, save. If I remove this now and I'll just keep it here. Now, do you think it will work? Not exactly, because our HTML page has no idea that the script tag exists. So inside the script tag, I have to write another attribute called source, and the source file is going to have a name of script.js. Save this, run this again, and now it works. So now what happens is it takes a look at the entire web page, takes a look at the h1 tag, displays it on the screen, takes a look at the script file, opens up the script file, executes the code inside it, comes back, closes the script tag, closes the body, closes the HTML, and is done with it. Now the reason the script files were invented so that because we may have multiple web pages. So it's not that we only use one page. We could have about.html and many different kinds of files, and we want some file to have access to all these pages. So in cases like this, if I have an about.html, I can just copy and paste this script tag, and that code will be available inside that file as well. So when that file is loaded, it will be logged on the console as well. And if it's like 10 different files, all I have to do is just change it here. If I want to make another change like this, and all of this will be reflected in all the files. So that's the reason why we do it this way. Now, again, this is not the only way to do it. As we have discussed, three ways you can work them out and understand how to use them. Very much like CSS, in which you have inline styles, file level styles, and then external styles in which you can create your own CSS files. Script tags works the same. In other versions, because script files could be so heavy, let's say that you have 7 different script files, then it could be possible to just merge them all into a single file. This is called a build step, and you don't need to worry about it right now. But basically, in cases like this, all of the JavaScript code that you write is taken and merged into a single file by a program called a build system that you can configure yourself. And then it creates that single file so that when an HTTP request is sent, only one file is sent over the wire and multiple requests are not done. So you can take a look at that as well. But these are the ways that you can configure a JavaScript file to work with your HTML page. Again, you need to know HTML in order to work with JavaScript because that's how it was created. So that's how you can get started with it. Alright guys, now let's take a look at what can you build with JavaScript. So we have discussed thus far what are the different ways that you can use JavaScript and what JavaScript is. But now let's take a look at what it can be used to build. So using JavaScript to build different kinds of applications has been the norm. Many different companies use JavaScript for different kinds of applications that they build and use. Let's take a look at what these are. So JavaScript can be used different kinds of applications. These are web applications, web servers, native mobile applications, and hybrid mobile applications. All of these have different ways of being used, and different JavaScript code can be used to use it. So let's take a look at them one by one and demystify how these things work. So the first thing is web applications. Using JavaScript to build web applications has been the norm. We have been building web applications using JavaScript since the invention of JavaScript. Now, the reason why it's so popular nowadays is because there are multiple ways of building a web application using JavaScript. The easiest and the most fundamental way is the way that we have discussed thus far, like which you create an HTML page, write the HTML code, embed some JavaScript in it, either using inline JavaScript or script tags or script files, and then that code is going to be used to manipulate the JavaScript, manipulate the HTML page using the JavaScript in some way or the other. Now this manipulation can be of several ways. Either you add some element on the node, remove some element on the node, get some data from a web server, and after getting that data, populate the entire HTML page with some new content that is available, let the user know that some new content is available, and many different kinds of things. That is important and very, very useful, but that's not the only way that you can do it. The other way is using something called single page applications, in which there's just one HTML page, which is used to just give the basic scaffolding and the shell of a page. Outside that, we have a JavaScript page that takes care of everything else. So if you've heard of frameworks such as Angular, Vue, React, they work on the similar premise. What happens is your HTML code is very minimalistic, and it is a big fat JavaScript file that is transferred over the internet. Once the user's browser has that JavaScript, it tries to execute it. When it's executing it, it's creating multiple HTML nodes using JavaScript, putting it inside the HTML page, and then JavaScript takes care of everything else. Navigation, HTTP calls, manipulation of the DOM, any kind of thing that a web application is supposed to do, JavaScript will take care of it. These applications are really JavaScript rich, and HTML is really used as a skeleton. Not much of HTML is used. CSS is used throughout, and it will be continued to use throughout, but that's the way it works. So because of this fundamental shift in how web applications work, the responsibilities of web servers have changed. So let's take a look at how you can use JavaScript to build web servers. Now, what used to happen before we had platforms like Node.js, which we can use to build web servers, which we'll also cover in this tutorial. But the reason why web servers were a little difficult, especially for front-end developers to understand, is because of the language barrier. So in JavaScript, in the front-end web applications, we'll be using JavaScript all the way. And since that was the only language that we would use to manipulate the web applications and its structure, but in web servers, you can build a web server using different kinds of technologies. JavaScript was not one of them. So the way you would use it would be using technologies such as PHP, which is still by far the most popular server-side scripting language. Then there's Java, which is very popular in the enterprise world. So is C# and the .NET platform. There are other languages such as Ruby and Python that were used, but JavaScript was not really a big player in that regard. So what happened afterwards is that we had the introduction of the Node.js platform that allows us to write JavaScript code so that front-end developers can sort of port their expertise to the backend. Now, it's important to understand that just because you can write JavaScript code on the web server or write the code to create a web server, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can just copy and paste your entire JavaScript file from the web browser to the web server and it will work exactly fine. Mainly because these are two different environments. In the browser, you will have elements such as a button, you will have elements such as a form, list, and whatever. It's a very visual environment. In servers, you don't have that. You have number crunching and different kinds of things such as accessing databases, caching data, serving up data, and whatever. So these are two different environments, although you can use the same JavaScript syntax, for loops, console logging, promises, and all the features. but you can't just port the code from here to there, just copy and paste, and it will work. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, in web servers, we use Node.js. Node.js has come a long way. We have Express.js, which is one of the most popular frameworks out there. Node.js is really popular among enterprise as well. And any kind of application that you want to build using backend development, Node.js is very much likely a good option to do that. Then comes native mobile applications. Now, the reason why we are making a distinction here between native and hybrid mobile application is something that we'll discuss in a moment. But the reason why we are saying that we can build native mobile applications is because before this, if you wanted to build an application that your customers could use, you had multiple platforms that you needed to tackle. Platforms such as Android, iOS, Windows Phone, and some other platforms as well. This was a bit problematic because then that means that if you want your application to be accessed by a large number of users, you need to write code for both Android platform as well as iOS platform. These two platforms have different programming language, different programming structure, different skill sets, and different environments in which you can develop applications. Android is open source, so you can build Android applications in both Mac and Windows. However, Apple doesn't allow you to build iOS applications on a Windows laptop. So you need to have a developer account, you need to have a Macintosh laptop, you need to have developer tools installed, you need to have an iPhone to test your applications. There's just a lot of upfront capital required there. In Android, you have the emulator, you have the open source tools and everything. But still, the languages are different. JavaScript is not really the language that they use, but they use Java in Android. And in iOS, the new language that is being used is Swift. And in Android, the new language that is being used is Kotlin. And the previous language in iOS was Objective-C. None of these languages are easy to pick up. And because JavaScript is so easy to pick up, more people know JavaScript than they know Java or Swift or Kotlin or whatever. Now, this is a problem mainly because the web applications that people build almost exactly mimic the features that we would want in an application, in a native mobile application. Now, there are ways through which you can use your current web application and have it work as sort of a substitute application inside your mobile applications. But the problem is that at the end of the day is using the web browser. So what happens is your web page is loaded into a web browser and it takes care of everything using JavaScript. Your application has no access to all the underlying features such as the camera, the machine learning features that have been developed, the Bluetooth, speakers, OS, internal hardwares, voice recorders. You have no access to them at all. So if you're trying to build a camera application, you can't do it using JavaScript, or you couldn't have done it. Nowadays, there are frameworks such as React Native, NativeScript, and many other kinds of platforms available where you can use your JavaScript skills in order to build native mobile applications. Again, it's not as simple as just copying your JavaScript code from your web application or your server application into a native mobile application. However, it is very similar to not learning a new language, but understanding the ins and outs of a platform and then adding your skill set on top of it. These applications are really native mobile applications, and the great part is that when you write the code, that code will get converted to both an iOS application and the Android application. You would still need to have the developer account, and for testing purposes, you would need to have access to an emulator or a Macintosh OS in iOS's case or whatever. But you can still have an application that will work. So that's the great part here. So this is what native mobile applications do, but still it needs a lot of configuration and understanding of the platform before you can even start building an application for the platform. On the other hand, we have hybrid mobile applications. Now this is a solution that has been available for a long time. What it allows you to do is it allows you to write JavaScript, and that JavaScript will then get converted into native OS calls. But this is a little slower than native mobile applications. If you're building applications that are just there to deliver content, such as an application that is there to tell people about the new concerts that a band is going to have, new conferences available, new videos available on a video store or whatever, then hybrid mobile applications are good. Native mobile applications, on the other hand, if you want to access the native features such as camera, browser features, voice recorder, Bluetooth, gyrometer, sensors, infrared, whatever your application has to, whatever your mobile has to offer. So hybrid mobile applications use platforms such as Apache's Cordova, and many other new platforms are available as well. You can take a look at these platforms and build these applications yourself. It's not very difficult to learn how to build these applications, but these are really helpful for us to use, and they're very easy to use as well. So these are some of the platforms that can be used. You can also build native Windows applications. You can also build native desktop applications using a platform called Electron, which was developed by GitHub. And there are many others as well. It is too much to count. But these are the platforms that are used. As you can see, JavaScript has evolved from a very simple programming or scripting language that was used to manipulate web pages to a full-fledged application programming language in which you can build applications of multiple kinds. Kind of like Python, but a little different. You can also write machine learning and AI code, but that's a whole different topic on its own. So that's how you can build applications. These are the kinds of applications you can build using JavaScript. This is exactly why JavaScript is one of the most popular job positions right nowadays. JavaScript developers are in high demand because they can use their skills or already existing skills and learn some new skills in order to build many kinds of applications. So with that in mind, let's see what else we can learn.
Just a quick info, guys. Test your knowledge of JavaScript by answering this question. Which of the following is not considered as an error in JavaScript? A. Syntax error. B. Missing of semicolons. C. Division of 0. D. Missing of brackets. Comment your answer in the comment section below. Subscribe to IntelliPad to know the right answer. Now, let's continue with the session.
Now we'll take a look at the basics of JavaScript. JavaScript as a language has several features that we can learn in order to get started with the basic concepts of programming. If you've never learned how to code, then you can follow along with us. This section is going to be really hands-on focused. So we'll have a lots of hands-on. We'll discuss a lot of caveats that you can learn when trying to learn a programming language. If you have already learned some basics of some programming language such as Python, C++, Java, it's going to be useful for you to follow along with us so that you can understand what are the features and differences between JavaScript and the language that you have learned. So firstly, we need to get comfortable with the JavaScript syntax and language features. So how does JavaScript work? What are the features that a JavaScript program would have, and how you can write programs on your own? The topics mentioned below are the topics that we'll be covering one by one. We'll have a hands-on for each one of those, and we would like for you to follow along with us. You don't need much of setup. All you need is a web browser, a code editor, or a text editor of any sort, such as Notepad if you don't have any, or Visual Studio Code, or you can use other code editors such as Sublime Text, Atom, Brackets, and any other kind of text editor that you prefer. And for that, we'll go through each of the topics one by one, and we'll cover as much ground as we possibly can. So let's get started with this. The first thing is variables. Now, in case you have programmed before, you already know what a variable is. But if you don't know, let me just clarify this for you. A variable is basically a name given to a memory location in which we can hold some data. That's basically all that is. So if you want to get as an input a user's username and password, you can store them inside a variable. That variable is then going to take care of everything that you store inside it. So we have a container. That container has a name. That name is then going to be used to reference to whatever value we put inside it. Think of it like a bucket inside a memory. Think of a memory as this empty room. We have a bucket. We put it with a name on that bucket. We put it inside the room. And in the room, inside the bucket, we put some information, something. Let's say that I want the username. So I create a bucket named username, put it inside the memory, and now whenever I want to use a person's username, I would first ask them, okay, enter a username. That person will enter the username. That username that the user entered will be put inside the bucket. And now whenever I want to access or remember what the username that the user had entered was, we'll take a look at that. So that's how variables work. Variables allow us to store data. Now it's called a variable because the data inside it can change at any time. It's variable depending on what is the last bit of information you put inside it. So that's the way it works. It allows us to store and remember data that we would need in a future computation or a future process. Now, variables store data in computer's memory or your system's memory. That means that they are volatile. So in case your program accidentally closes, anything that was stored inside a variable will be lost. If you don't want to lose it, then there are ways that you can store it inside a file or whatever. We're not going to be covering that, but that's how variables work. The data that you have inside a variable can then be stored inside a file on a web server, on other data storage platforms as well. But as of now, when you're using a variable, we're talking about data inside a memory that was given a name so that it can be accessed later. The data inside the memory location can change. That's why it's called a variable. All right. So now let's take a look at a hands-on in which we'll be learning variables. So we would very much like you to follow along with us in this hands-on, and we will cover variables in this hands-on. Again, you don't need much. All you need is a code editor. I'll be using Visual Studio Code, and you need a web browser. In the web browser, just any web browser that you use the same setup that we had earlier, in which we had created an index.html file. Open that up in the web browser and in the code editor, so that when you make changes to the code, you can refresh the browser and see the changes being reflected here. Open up the console as well, because this is where we'll be using the web browser. This is what we'll be using inside the web browser as of now. So again, I will just use the script tag so that I can just embed my code here. But the basic understanding here is quite simple. The code that we're writing is JavaScript, and we want some input from the user. Now, I will tell you how you can get input from the user in a moment. Right now, let's take a look at how you can declare a variable. So in a variable, there are multiple ways of doing with things. First thing I'd like to show you is how you can write a comment. Comment is basically something that you write that you want the person who's reading the code to be able to understand, but you don't want your browser to interpret that code. You're basically saying this is something that is not code, that is just something that a person who's reading the code is supposed to get. You don't have to worry about it. Don't interpret it. This is not code. Just move along and skip this line. So there are two ways of writing a comment. One is you can use 2 forward slashes or the division symbol, and that is a single line comment. So single line comment. Let me just change the theme so that it's a little more apparent. Yeah, hopefully this is visible now. So I have a single line comment, and now I can have a multi-line comment as well. This is what happens when you have a divide symbol followed by an asterisk or a multiplication symbol, and this closes when you have a multiplication symbol and a division symbol. So start and the end. So the way you start it is this. You basically just create this symbol, and then you write the code that you want, or write the things that you want to write. So this code is using a variable, and I can write it in a new line. Variables are being used, or whatever you wish to write. This is to explain the code so that the person who's looking at the code can understand what it is doing. Now, a single line comment is good if you just have a single line description. If you have a multi-line description, then you can have a multi-line comment, right? So now let's show you about the 3 things that we need. So there are 3 things that we need to understand. First is declaration, and second is after declaring the variable, we use the variable, or you can also call it initialization, and the third one is using the variable. So the way it works is this. To declare a variable in JavaScript, you are likely to use a keyword called var, var. Var is a keyword that was developed in JavaScript so that you can use variable of any kind. If you come with other programming languages, then you would have to use the keywords such as int, string, or whatever to describe the type of language. Here you just need to use the var. And now I need the name of the variable. Let's say user name. And this is what is called a declaration. I'm saying, okay, I'm going to be using this variable. Now, JavaScript to a certain degree is a very relaxed language.